All right. All right. Welcome to the Common Sense Show. And, for a while now, I've been thinking about doing a daily show, um, just to, um, like tie in some business news is happening on a regular basis. Sometimes I feel like I'm falling behind with these lives when I actually go do them. And I'm streaming at the moment to three different um, platforms. So this is the first time, actually four. This is the first time I'm actually streaming on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok watching this, hello. How are you? Shoot me a message, say hi. We're talking about the Florida foreclosures today um, on the Common Sense Show. I know that it has been disastrous to some degree. Um, what has happened in Florida in terms of like people losing their homes. And if you remember COVID was such an interesting time because there were people transplanting themselves from up north, New York, coming from all over the country, California to Florida because of the COVID rules, but also because of the tax situation, the tax treatment. But now Florida is faced with a whole different set of issues, which is that the people who went down there to escape from COVID, from um, taxes, from income tax, et cetera, are now struggling trying to keep their houses afloat. So that's what we're talking about today. So let's lock in and get started. So I want to break down why now Florida is leading the nation in foreclosures and what's going on. So let's talk about this right now. So basically, in October, Florida foreclosure activity rose more than 70% year over year. So more than 7 out of 10, 70% of foreclosures, scheduled actions, bank repossessions are happening in Florida right now. South Carolina foreclosures were up 68%. But today, of course, we're talking about Florida and what happened there. But why is it that Florida is in such a foreclosure crisis? Well, one report noted that it was a temporary spike because there was backlog data that happened previously in Florida, given that, the hurricanes came through, like a crazy increase of insurance, but there's been so many issues with Florida undertaking foreclosure activities. So basically, Tampa and Florida had the most foreclosures of any city in the U.S., with every one foreclosure in every 1,373 housing units that were in foreclosure. Again, some people said that mixture or that number is coming from encouraged, is coming from backlog data that came from years ago. I have my suspicions about where it's actually coming from. I think that it's coming from the fact that insurance rates are like out of control and people are just trying to figure out how exactly to live. So in California, I've done plenty of stories about California insurance rates and why insurers, generally speaking, are leaving the state of California primarily due to the risk factor of natural disasters. Now, you may yourself have heard of at least 3 or 4 hurricanes last year in Florida that basically devastated southwestern Florida, and people are starting to feel the effects. So lenders have started the foreclosure process on approximately 25,129 properties in October 2025. Now, if you're an investor, you're looking at, and you've been sitting on cash because you haven't actually started investing in anything, like you're probably thinking like this is a great time for me to jump in. And to some degree, I think you might be right. If you're watching this on TikTok, Instagram, feel free to say hello. But I think the reality is that for people living in Florida, they have a lot of stuff to contend with. I wanted to show you a video of what exactly is going on. There's a news report going on out there. Let me just pull it up here. If you're on TikTok, you're not going to be able to see this, but you can. Actually, I think you might because I'm sharing it from my computer, but we'll see. All right. Let's see. No free advertising on this channel.
Foreclosure rates are on the rise across the country, particularly here in Florida. According to real estate experts, the Sunshine State leads the U.S. Lenders in Florida started the foreclosure process on 1 in every 1,800 homes last month. And Tampa has seen the highest rate in the country. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer shows us what experts think is driving these higher than normal numbers.
From 2020 to about 2023, home prices soared across Tampa Bay. Some families who bought their homes back then are now facing a harsh reality.
They would have to sell at essentially the same price they bought for because there has been a declining market. So they would need to bring roughly $10,000 to the closing table in order to avoid a short sale.
St. Pete realtor Mia Annabelle with Smith & Associates explained what can happen next.
By the time we get that net sheet, they're negative. They can't sell, they can't afford the property.
And that can lead to foreclosure. Florida saw more foreclosures than any other state in October, according to Adam Data, a real estate analytics company. Tampa had the highest rate of all major cities, with 1 in every 1,373 housing units in foreclosure.
Crazy, right?
Experts point to skyrocketing property taxes and insurance costs as major factors, but that's just the beginning.
It's really all prices and all costs associated with housing, whether it's HOA, whether it's interest on mortgage payments.
Well, it seems like generally speaking,
all of those costs are
the issues
up.
here
On top of that,
is that everything is going up in the state of Florida. It's the cost of living, it's the cost of groceries, as this gentleman just expounded. It's the cost of HOA fees. It's the cost of insurance. With insurance probably being the net driver of all issues or all specific costs surrounding trying to maintain your home. Insurance costs are getting kind of untenable in certain areas of the country where, generally speaking, people went to be relaxed and to have a better standard of living, both in weather and in tax treatment. But I mean, it's looking like it's just becoming way more expensive. Let's continue.
Are up too. USF economist Michael Snipes says those added costs are often a big problem for retirees on a fixed income.
It's a huge investment. It's a huge source of spending for a lot of individuals. It's a huge part of their income. So any small change is going to be felt particularly acutely by individuals who might not have a whole lot of money.
Realtors say the best advice for families worried about foreclosure:
have the conversation sooner than later. It's not going to go away.
Sure.
Sometimes we get called in and it's to a point where the bank has already started the process, and that gets very tricky.
In other words, don't wait until it's too late. In Tampa, Aaron Mesmer, Fox 13 News.
So to me, what's interesting about this is that, I mean, the advice, right? The advice from my perspective is to why wait until you're up against it and you can't do anything about it, right? Just like in business, you have to manage your cash flow of your company, or you're going to be experiencing some serious hardship, especially if you're in a position where you run a business where you get paid with accrual-based accounting, which is basically accounting that happens in arrears of when the service or product gets delivered, right? That's a big problem. So cash flow forecasting is a major aspect of controlling your household expenses, right? It means that you're going to have to think about what's coming up, make plans ahead of time. And I wonder if, people, I don't want to necessarily disparage a person who is trying their best, but at the end of the day, if the bank tells you that you need to be foreclosed, if you're going to be foreclosed on, it might behoove you to think about how you can actually manage your affairs, so that you can make a move before the bank makes a move, right? Why wait until they come and they want to take your property, right? Why not just make a preemptive move, sell the home, get into a position that's financially more viable for you, and then try to put yourself in a position that ultimately gives you, a greater, more long-term visibility into your finances, into your future, right? It's the instability that kills people, I think, when they're kind of going through these issues with trying to manage, the foreclosure. And sometimes they may not have money to move. I understand, but it might be something that is worth taking a look at, or trying to manage that process in advance so that you don't have to worry about it, or at least it's less of a stress when it comes up in the future, because it's not going to go away. It's not like the banks just forget. They're going to be like, oh yeah, you know what, you owe us money. We're just going to forget that you owe us money, and it's going to be what it's going to be. There's another story from Lakeland, Florida, that talks about home foreclosures as well. I want to talk about that as well. So if you're on Lakeland, and someone who's going through this new story is for you. Let's take a look.
Lakeland has more foreclosure activity than any other metro area of its size in America. But some say the numbers don't tell the whole story. News Channel 8's Polk County Bureau reporter Stacey DeSilva live in Lakeland with more on the story. Stacey.
Josh, so here are those numbers. The study found that 1 in every 172 units in the Lakeland area saw some kind of foreclosure activity last year. Experts say the reason why could be growth and insurance premium increases.
Right now, the problem is probably going to be insurance premiums.
Real estate broker Bob Miller says his own mortgage has gone up 30% in the last few years because of insurance premiums. It's the same reason he says he believes Lakeland ranked #1 in foreclosure activity in 2024 among metropolitan areas with more than 200,000 people. That study was done by a real estate data company, Adam.
Eventually, the market can't take it. The market's going to crash because when the homes are being sold at a foreclosure auction, well, when they're sold at a foreclosure auction, the bank finally puts them up for sale on the open market, then they're going to sell them for less.
The same study found Florida tied with New Jersey for states with the highest foreclosure activity.
It's easy to say that the sky is falling, and I just don't think that's necessarily the case.
Co-owner of Keller Williams Realty, Gate Artie, tells News Channel 8 there's a difference between foreclosure filings and a foreclosure.
Delinquencies are going to rise, and that's going to lead to some filings. How many of those ultimately lead to an actual foreclosure, though, is unclear.
In his view, Artie says foreclosures are not a significant piece of the housing market in Lakeland. There just happens to be growth in houses, people, and sales. Now, overall, the study found total foreclosure activity nationwide, which those are default notices, scheduled auctions, and bank repossessions that actually went down 10% in 2024. Josh?
Wow, interesting. We've talked so much about Lakeland blowing up in size and being so popular, so it's interesting to hear this story. But what did the realtor tell you? Is it a market for the buyers or the sellers?
Well, Josh, I always try to pick their brains when I have the opportunity in these situations. I'm told it's a buyer's market. Inventory has actually gone up compared to a couple years ago. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, so I believe that. I believe it's a buyer's market at the moment.
What's up, everybody?
Sure.
Welcome back into episode of the Lawyer You Know podcast.
Sorry, that's Peter Tragos from the Lawyer You Know. We are not talking about the law today, not yet, at least. Yeah, so foreclosure filings, there is definitely a difference between foreclosure filings and actually being foreclosed on. I completely agree with that. I think that, however, though, the fact that people are filing foreclosure or banks are filing foreclosure means one, really major thing, which is that people are having a hard time keeping up. So whether that's filing or whether that's actually being foreclosed on, people's ability to actually stay in their home is being challenged by the fact that everything is unaffordable right now. It's really expensive. Groceries, homeowners insurance, HOA fees, these are all contributing to homeowners being challenged when it comes to their ability to maintain and actually pay for their housing expenses, right? Whether the person's retired or whether they're not retired, right? So living expenses, generally speaking, are up. Not to even mention, health insurance as well, right? So the increase across the board in everything that is required to maintain a healthy and happy life is everything's going up. Good food, health insurance premiums, insurance, property insurance, all that stuff that we're talking about contributes to your being able to stay in your home is essentially going up. One of the things that has gone up as well is HOA foreclosures for houses at the moment as well. Did you know that HOA can foreclose on your house? Did you have any idea that HOAs can foreclose on a house? So here's how it works, right? So an HOA can, if you don't pay your HOA dues, your fees, or your fines, you would allow essentially the association to be able to place a lien on your home and potentially force a sale to recover the debt. Even if, you ready for this? Even if your mortgage payments are current. If your mortgage payments are current, they can still force the sale of your home. Of course, it all depends on what the state laws are regarding HOAs and HOA rules. It becomes a real important decision that you have to make when you're going into a home and actually buying it. So it's something for you to think about, that HOAs could cause you, especially if you hit a bad patch, it could cause you to end up having to, not just the cost of fighting them if it ever came to civil, like a civil dispute where you have to hire an attorney, but also the fact that they may force you to in order to recover the fees, they may force you to actually foreclose your home. And this is with a current mortgage. This is even if you're current on your mortgage. But you should, obviously, whenever this stuff comes up, you should try to fight it the best you can. All right. So I wanted to make a quick video about this. I'm gonna try to do quick videos every single day, between 10 to 20 minutes on one specific subject, and kind of go from there. So thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to share the live when I go live too on your page, even if you don't have time to watch. Maybe there's somebody else who's looking at your page that does. All right. I'm Micah from the Common Sense Show. Don't forget that if you don't go about doing your business, you're going to be doing the business of someone else. Until next time.